I'm gonna look inside one of my favorite pasta cookbooks and see what kind of shape we're gonna make today. So let's do a little planning. Oh, this is it. Okay. I think we're gonna do sopressine. So sopressine is sort of like a little surprise. It looks like tortellini, but it doesn't have any filling inside. And I also want to do, I think I'm going to do a laminated dough today. So we're going to go down in the garden. I have some parsnips that have gone to seed and have some flowers on them. I have some blue bachelor flowers. They're edible flowers. That'll be really pretty. Let's go into the garden first. Okay, I'll see you down there. I'm just going to kind of drop these in. I have a bowl of water over here. I'm just going to kind of let those go in some water for a second. Right. Neighborhood dogs. Okay, so I'm actually going to do my favorite pasta dough today. It is how I mostly make pasta dough when I'm cooking for my family. It's mostly how I teach it. And so that's what we're gonna do today. It's gonna turn out better than it did the first time. Okay, so I am going to weigh it in grams. And I'm gonna use some 00 flour. This is a soft flour. There's two different, well, in America, there's like two different kinds of 00 flour. One is for pizza dough, and that's a harder wheat flour, and one is for pasta dough. And I will tell you, it is really hard to find the pasta dough variety. I think it's called Torino, or Tenero or something like that. Anyway, I get it at a specialty shop, a Mediterranean importer, and it's a really soft and really nice flour. If you can't find it, just use the 00 that you get in the grocery store, or you can also just use all-purpose. So 300 grams for 4 people. And for my family, that is plenty. Almost there. 304. Okay. And then I don't weigh my eggs, but I do, for every 100 grams of flour, I do 1 whole egg. And we're gonna do this on the countertop, old school. So just make a well in the middle of your flour. And then we're gonna crack in 3 eggs. And I like the eggs to be at room temperature as well. So very specific tool here. A fork is all you're gonna need, and I'm just gonna break up the yolks, and I'm gonna whisk them up. So just break up the yolks, whisk them all up. I like to get the yolks really homogenized, combined with the egg whites before I start incorporating flour. It's almost the 4th of July around here. And then I'm just going to start by putting the tines of my fork against the bottom, against the tabletop, and pulling my flour from underneath. Until I have a really gloopy, pasty sort of mess. And then I can just push flour over onto the top, and I'm not really gonna have any risk of an overflow or a river of egg going everywhere. And once I get to this point, I like to switch to my bench scraper. And I just pull the flour up from underneath and I tap it through. And then I use my bench scraper to start the kneading process. This keeps my hands fairly clean so I don't get sticky globs of not fully incorporated egg and flour all over my hands. And then once I get to this point, I'm just gonna switch over to my hands. And I'm just gonna use standard kneading procedure: turn, fold over, push with the palm of your hand. If you're getting and finding that your dough is really soft and sticky, you can lightly dust a tiny bit more flour onto your work surface. You don't want to add too much at a time because it does take a little bit of time for your flour to fully hydrate, and you might end up with a really dry dough. I do like a stiffer dough, but I don't want it dry and cracking. If it's too dry, I would mist a tiny bit of water onto my hands and then helper though. He knows that cheese is going to be happening tonight, so he's on high alert. Okay, here's my dough ball, and how I know this is done is it's nice and smooth. I don't have any like craters or pock marks or any cracking in it, and when I press into it, it comes back nice and gently. It doesn't bounce back really, really fast. It also doesn't leave a big indentation. So I know my dough is ready to rest. It needs to rest for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to lay it out on a clean towel, and I'm just going to pop my bowl over the top of it to keep air from getting onto it, and then get my hands a little rinsed off. Eventually, I'm going to have a sink out here on my deck. I'm very excited. It is happening soon. Just not soon enough. Okay. Right, Kodiak? Not soon enough. Okay. So I'm just gonna get my pretty flowers out of their water bath, lay them out to dry. And these I'm gonna use to make my dough even prettier than it already is. So these are my morel mushrooms. And morels grow wild in the forest, and they grow in burn zones. So last year's fires are where this year's morel mushrooms are coming from. And if you've heard that you should not wash your mushrooms in water, it's not totally true. It's sort of a fallacy, especially morels. They get really dirty. They get pine needles all over them. They also get bugs on the inside of them. And so just going to encourage those out of them. I'm not going to leave them in the water for a really long time. I just want to give them a nice rinse. And then I'm going to lay them out on my sheet pan here to sort of dry out. I'm actually going to go stick these in the sun since it's still sunny over on the other side of my deck. Just going to stick them on the railing. There we go. I'll be right back. And then while those are drying out for me, I'm just going to prep my favas. And favas do take an extra step. So I think I'll take a picture. Okay, so favas have two different coatings. I have this protective outside coating that we need to get off. And just like if you've ever shelled English peas, it's the very same procedure. And you can see how sort of fibrous, it's almost like a fur coat, like a fur lining on the inside. These are awesome. These are great cover crops if you have a garden. You can start growing them in the fall, plant them in the fall. They'll grow all over winter, especially in the Pacific Northwest. And then in the springtime, you'll get delicious favas, but also the leaves of the fava plant are really delicate and they're great in salads. So we need to get the first outside pod off, and then it has another protective layer, and how we're going to get that off is we are actually going to blanch it. So I'm going to get some blanching water going. I'm turning my grill on. And I'll get that going. Especially in the summertime. You should drink wine while you roll up pasta dough and form it. So, since it's so warm, we're gonna have a little Pinot Grigio. Don't cut yourself with your wine opener. Salute. All right, so what I'm gonna do with my morels is they're still a little damp, but that's okay. So like I said, it is okay to wash your mushrooms. You don't want to soak them for a really long time because they will start, especially like grocery store button mushrooms and things. But wild mushrooms definitely benefit from a little bit of a wash. Really briefly dunk in water, let all the sediment go to the bottom, pick them out, and then lay them out and let them dry. Because they will release all that moisture and they will get dried out again and there won't be any problems with it. So what you don't want to do is put them in a whole bunch of water and then leave them there for a really long time and then try and use them right away. But morels also aren't quite as spongy as other mushrooms are, so I always wash my morels. I always dunk them in a bowl of water. Okay, I'm just going to put these all right back onto the sheet pan so they can finish drying out. I'm going to set them back in the sun again. Anchovy. I love anchovy. I put it in so many things, and you can use it really intensely, like tons of anchovy. That makes me very happy. But I also like to use it more as like a seasoning. It just adds some extra depth of flavor, some saltiness, so more like some added umami. So it's one way of getting that like sort of MSG style bump in your flavor of your food. I'm gonna slice my garlic so as thin as possible. You can do this on a mandolin if you are so inclined. These are anchovies, but these are not just any kind of anchovy. These are anchovies with hot peppers in them, so they're like spicy anchovy. Like you can see all the like chili peppers in them, all the chili flakes. These are delicious. This is my favorite brand. This is not sponsored. This is imported from Italy. Angostino Recca. It's delicious. They also have regular anchovies that I like to keep in my fridge, and I keep giant containers of it just like this because I use a lot of them and I never like to be out of them. I get this size at my specialty market. My local grocery stores carry the smaller containers, so if that's all I can get, that's all I have. I always try and have at least a backup just in case, because you never want to run out of anchovy, ever. I'm gonna let the weiner inside and I'll be right back. You're gonna go in too? Okay. He'll bark to come back out in just a minute, I guarantee you. Okay, so these are sealed pretty tight. I also love the jars that they come in because I can reuse them. I'm gonna check my camera just real quick, see if it's still recording. Okay, so it has this little float on top that keeps the anchovies pushed down under the oil, just like that. So you just pull it up, grab a fork, and now this is where you're gonna decide how many anchovies are you using tonight. You could just do one or two and just get a little bit of umami flavor, or you could go for a little bit of a punch. And I'm gonna go for a little bit of a punch because one of my husband and my favorite pasta is anchovy pasta, and I use like a container. It's about a quarter of this, the entire thing in it. And these bad boys are super meaty. Look at those, they're gorgeous. So I'm gonna go with 8. Well, I'm just gonna use all of those that just came out accidentally. Does not hurt my feelings one little bit. Then I like to push this back in and push it down so everything stays under the oil. That part stays cured and preserved. Close it up, and then this just goes in my refrigerator, and it lasts for a really long time. In most people's home, just not mine, because I will eat all of it really quickly. Okay, and I'm really not going to do much to the anchovies. I'm just going to run my knife through them because flowers or herbs and things that you're going to put sandwich between two pieces of pasta and roll out a little bit more. You don't want any big hard stems in it because they'll tear the dough. So I just want these like really delicate flower pods. So I'm just gonna pop those off. Okay, so I had a little technical difficulty. I lost one of my cameras because I filled up the SD card and I don't have an extra, so my amazing children are formatting it for me, and maybe it'll be back and maybe it won't. So until then, I have one camera. So it's time to roll out pasta. I'm gonna are the furthest apart, and I'm going to roll out a quarter of my dough at a time. And everything else that I'm not rolling out is going to stay on my towel under my bowl. My dough feels really nice. Always do a trifold. Dimple, 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 press it out. Okay. So I'm kind of evaluating how moist my dough is, and it's actually pretty moist considering how warm it is outside. I'm gonna turn this back 2 notches, or that would be 2 numbers depending on the kind of machine you have. I don't actually have numbers on this machine, I just have little notches. And I'm going to cut my dough in half, or my sheet. I'm gonna cut it, trying to get it kind of equal. And now, just want to make sure we're not sticking. This is where a little simola or semolina flour helps a little bit. It doesn't really absorb into the sheet, but it keeps it from sticking to the counter. Okay, so now I'm just gonna place my flowers. accordion cutter if you have one. I don't. So I'm just going to square off my edges. Save this for soup if I wanted to. I'm going to square off. Okay, so this guy, is 11 centimeters. So I'm going to go about 5 3/4, a little bit more than that, almost 6. Kind of down the middle. I think Evan says 1 1/4 inches, but I think I'm going a little bit bigger than that. It's okay, as long as you have a square, you're fine. Square-ish. These guys aren't square. So now, sometimes you have a right side and a wrong side when you laminate, or if you do 2 different colors of pasta. This looks pretty good. So either way is fine. I'm going to fold in half like I'm making a tortellini, and I'm going to squeeze it, okay? And then I'm just gonna kind of dimple right in the middle there and bring these together, but they don't have to really totally like glue together. I just want them to just stay, so it kind of looks like my tortellini. Okay. So that was point to point, so I have a triangle, and then push that in, make a little dimple, and pull this together. This one's a little dried out. If it's starting to get dried out, Okay, let's go ahead and finish dinner, shall we? So I'm just gonna blanch my fava beans really quickly, just for maybe 30 seconds in some simmering water. And that water should definitely be salted. I should have done this ahead of time. I do a tablespoon of salt for a gallon of water. And I have about 2 gallons of water in this pot. I've been having some serious technical difficulties today. I just lost my second camera again. I'm gonna need some backup batteries, some backup micro SD cards. I learned a lot of lessons today, like I haven't learned it before, but you know. All right, so I'm just gonna pull these out, and instead of dropping these into an ice bath, I'm just And then while those are sauteing, I'm just going to take my favas and they'll just slip out. You just kind of push them. Sometimes you have to make a little pop in that skin and you get this beautiful green little tender fava bean. Crispy, just what we want. I'm going to add in our garlic and anchovy. And I'm going to give it a touch of olive oil, just because it seems a little bit on the dry side. close the lid so I can get this water back up to a boil before I drop. Stir. These are only going to take like a minute and a half. So they drop to the bottom of the pan and then they will slowly start to float. And once they are floating, they really only need another like 30 seconds and then they'll be done. I'm going to go ahead and add my favas into my pan with my morels. Really just my favas just need to get warmed through. They don't need to be cooked anymore. I'm going to add some of my pasta fava cooking water. In the sauce. Okay, it doesn't look very creamy right now, but it's going to. A little bit at a time, I'm going to sprinkle in some of the parsley, more cheese. More black pepper. mint on top. Mint, favas, morels go so good together. And then, why not a little more cheese? Okay, I have to take a picture. Let's make it pretty. There we go. It's very hot on the bottom. It's really good. The lemon and the mint goes so nicely with the favas, and the texture of the pasta is really lovely. I hope you try it. If you do, put your comments below. Thank you. See you next time.